It began with a winter story no one expected. A small group of Filipinos arrived in a Russian town covered in ice, where the wind bit hard and the streets stayed silent. Locals kept to themselves, their shoulders heavy from the long months of cold. But something changed the moment the Filipinos stepped in. They smiled at strangers. They helped neighbors they didn't know. And soon, something unbelievable happened. People who once walked past each other without a word suddenly began opening their doors, sharing food, and even laughing again. Some say it was a miracle. Others say it was just kindness. But everyone agreed on one thing. Filipino kindness melts Russian snow. At first, the Russians did not understand why these foreigners were always smiling. Many of them thought, why are they so happy in a place this cold? But the Filipinos came from a culture where warmth was not just about weather, but about the heart. They greeted people on the street, offered help to elderly neighbors, and checked on residents who lived alone. At the beginning, the locals found this strange. Russians were used to minding their own business. In winter, most people stayed indoors, waiting for the long cold months to pass. But slowly, Filipino kindness began to shine like sunlight in the middle of winter. One day, a Filipino woman saw an old man shoveling snow alone. The snow was so thick he could barely move it. Without hesitation, she called her friends. They got extra shovels and helped him finish the job in minutes. The old man watched in shock. He had never seen strangers help like that. That night, he told his neighbors about the Filipinos who helped him. Word spread. More people became curious. And curiosity slowly turned into connection. Soon, the Filipinos started inviting Russian neighbors for small meals. It began with hot soup and homemade bread. Then came adobo, pancit, lumpia, and halo-halo. Russians were surprised by the flavors, but more than the food, they felt something they had not felt in a long time. Warmth, not from the stove, but from the heart. The Russians began to ask themselves, why do these people care so much? Without knowing it, the Bayanihan spirit was moving through the town. Bayanihan means helping others without expecting anything in return. In the Philippines, it is common to help carry a heavy load, repair a home, or share food with someone in need. When Filipinos brought this spirit to Russia, it was like lighting candles in the snow, small at first, but bright enough to attract the whole town. Russians began smiling back. They started greeting each other in the streets. Some even joined the Filipino gatherings. For the first time in years, the town felt alive. Imagine a place where the snow is thick, the air is cold, and everyone stays indoors. Now imagine laughter suddenly breaking the silence, children playing outside, neighbors helping each other carry groceries, and strangers becoming friends. That is what kindness does. It melts walls faster than it melts ice. It changes hearts faster than it changes seasons. Do you believe kindness can change a place? Have you ever seen a simple act turn into something powerful? Share your stories in the comments below. I'd love to read them. As winter continued, the Filipinos and Russians started working together. When a storm hit the town and power lines went down, the Filipinos did not panic. Instead, they organized a small team to check on every house. They made sure the elderly had blankets and warm drinks. They set up a small kitchen where everyone could come and share food. Russians were moved by this. They were used to handling problems alone. But now, they realized that together was easier than alone. The kindness spread so fast that even the local officials noticed. They asked the Filipinos how they managed to bring everyone closer. The answer was simple. They showed love without asking for anything back. And everyone could feel it. Parents felt safer. Children felt happier. Streets felt warmer, even with snow still falling. Some neighbors who never talked to each other began helping with small tasks, like pushing cars stuck in the snow or fixing broken fences. Others started exchanging dishes, Russian borscht for Filipino sinigang. Even language barriers became funny moments instead of problems. People would point, laugh, make hand signs, and somehow, the message always got across. Kindness, after all, does not need translation. One Russian family said they had lived in the same street for 20 years but never had a real conversation with any neighbor. But after meeting the Filipinos, they invited people over for tea. Soon, their home became a gathering place filled with different languages, different cultures, and one shared feeling, friendship. Isn't it amazing how one small act can start a chain reaction? Have you ever helped someone and watched that kindness spread? Tell me your experience in the comments. Your story might inspire someone today. As days passed, the Filipinos continued to show the Bayanihan spirit. When a local school needed help repairing its playground, the Filipino workers offered their skills. They spent weekends fixing swings, painting fences, and planting flowers. Russian parents watched in disbelief. They were not used to seeing strangers work for free. One father asked, "Why are you doing this? What do you want in return?" A Filipino man smiled and said, "We want the children to have a place to be happy. That is enough." That moment changed something deep in the father's heart. The next day, he brought tools and helped. Others followed. The playground that once looked abandoned now looked bright and colorful. The children's laughter became the new soundtrack of the neighborhood. And every parent knew it started with the kindness of people who came from far away. If you are enjoying this story so far, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps us share more real stories that show the world still has goodness. And if you think more people should hear this story of kindness and unity, share this video with your family and friends. But the biggest miracle happened on the coldest night of winter. Snow fell without stopping. Roads were blocked. Stores ran out of supplies. Most people stayed inside, waiting for the storm to end. But when morning came, something unbelievable happened. Russians and Filipinos stepped outside together. Without being asked, they began clearing the streets. They dug out cars, helped families who were stuck, and delivered food to those who could not leave their homes. It was a sight no one expected. Dozens of people working side by side in freezing weather, laughing, sharing, and helping without asking for anything. The town had never seen such unity. Some people cried not from the cold, but from the warmth of seeing strangers become one community. And at the center of it all was the spirit of Bayanihan, shining bright even under the heavy snow. But what happened next was the moment everyone would remember forever. The moment that turned this story from a simple act of kindness into something truly unforgettable. In the center of the town square, someone placed a small Filipino flag beside a Russian one. No speeches, no announcement, just a simple gesture. But that tiny act spoke louder than words. It told every person in that town that kindness had no nationality, friendship had no borders, and unity was stronger than any storm. People walking by stopped, and for the first time, they didn't just see two flags. They saw one community. That night, the town decided to hold a small celebration. It wasn't planned or organized by officials. It was made by people who once barely spoke to one another. Russian families cooked their traditional dishes. Filipinos brought their own favorites. Tables were lined with food from two worlds, but at that moment, it all felt like one. Children ran around wrapped in scarves, music began to play, and even the shyest neighbors started dancing. Some laughed at how cold their hands were, but nobody cared. Warmth was not coming from heaters or jackets. It came from something deeper. In a corner, an elderly Russian woman who had spent most of her life alone looked around the square. She had never seen so many smiles in winter. She was used to silence, to long nights with only the sound of wind. But that night, she heard joy. A Filipino girl approached her and offered a plate of food. The old woman hesitated, then took it. She tried pancit for the first time, and her eyes lit up. She whispered, "Spasibo," and the little girl answered, "Salamat." Two different languages, but one meaning, "Thank you." Word about the little town began to spread. Nearby villages heard stories of strangers helping strangers, of food shared, of laughter in the snow. Reporters came, expecting to find a simple cultural exchange. Instead, they found a miracle. They interviewed locals, and many of them said the same thing. Before the Filipinos arrived, the town felt cold even inside their hearts. People kept their doors locked, their eyes down, and their voices quiet. After the Filipinos came, everything changed. Doors opened. Tables were shared. The town learned to smile again. Some Russians said they had always believed kindness was a weakness. But the Filipinos showed them that kindness was strength, the strength to care, to help, and to love without expecting anything in return. That lesson touched everyone. And slowly, other towns began to follow the same path. Volunteers traveled to places hit by storms. Families started sharing extra food with neighbors, and people who were once strangers started treating each other like family. Can you imagine how different the world would be if more people lived with the same spirit of Bayanihan? What would happen if every neighborhood, every city, or even every country helped each other without waiting to be asked? Think about it. Maybe the biggest changes start with the smallest acts. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what kindness means to you. Months passed and winter finally ended. The snow melted, but the kindness did not. Filipino workers, who were once temporary guests, became part of the community. Some married locals, others started small businesses, and many continued serving the town. But even more amazing was the change in the Russian residents themselves. They no longer waited for help. They offered help first. They no longer stayed silent. They greeted each other. They checked on their neighbors. They had learned that warmth did not come from the sun. It came from the heart. One Russian man who once lived quietly and alone started organizing weekly gatherings. He said he never understood the power of community until he saw it with his own eyes. He once believed survival meant being strong by yourself. Now he believed true strength was being strong together. Imagine how powerful that realization must have been after so many winters spent in silence. If this story has touched your heart, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so more people can hear it. The world needs more stories that remind us that kindness still exists, that unity is possible, and that love is stronger than any cold season. And who knows, maybe someone watching right now will be inspired to help a neighbor or offer a smile to a stranger. Years later, children in the town told the story to their own kids. They didn't talk about the snow or the storms or the long winter. They talked about the day Filipinos brought warmth into their world. They talked about the miracle of Bayanihan, the miracle that melted even the coldest hearts. And every time the first snow of winter fell, families would gather and remind each other, kindness is our fire. As long as it burns, we will never be cold. Now, ask yourself something important. If kindness could melt snow in a faraway town, what could it melt in your life? Anger? Loneliness? Fear? What small act of kindness can you give to someone today? Something free, something simple, but something powerful. A smile, a helping hand, a message to someone going through a hard time. Let me know in the comments. Your answer might inspire someone else to do the same. The Bayanihan Miracle teaches us one unforgettable lesson. Sometimes, the world changes not with big speeches or big leaders, but with ordinary people doing simple good things. A shared meal, a helping hand, a warm smile. Those little sparks of love travel faster than the coldest wind. And when enough people choose kindness, even the longest winter begins to feel like spring. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's spread warmth to more hearts, one story at a time.